Forged in ice and tempered by fire, born in the mountains of the east, the Chow Chow was never just a dog. It was a guardian, a symbol, a soul wrapped in fur. Its story begins where myth and history blur. In the frozen steppes of northern China and Mongolia, a land of fierce winters and silent endurance. There, under skies that burned with starlight and snow, a primitive dog evolved beside humankind. Strong, stoic, and watchful. Some say they descended from the same ancient line that gave birth to the wolf and the bear. Others believed they were gifts from the gods, creatures of protection sent to stand between mortals and misfortune. Whatever the truth, by the time China's first emperors rose, the Chow Chow was already there. An old soul in a young civilization. They guarded temples and palaces, their thick coats shielding them from the cold, their keen eyes trained on every shadow. Unlike other breeds born of obedience, the Chow was born of independence. They did not follow blindly. They watched. They decided. They chose loyalty, and once chosen, it was unbreakable. In ancient texts and paintings, they were called the Songshi Quan, meaning puffy lion dog. But their appearance was only half their mystery. Their tongues, shaded deep blue-black, were said to hold spiritual power. Some monks believed it was the mark of the heavens, that these dogs had touched the divine flame before descending to earth. They lived among hunters, monks, and emperors alike. To the hunter, they were fierce companions, able to bring down wolves and guard camps through the long night. To the monks, they were silent sentinels, resting in courtyards like statues of patience. And to the rulers of China, they were symbols of discipline and order. Dogs that embodied the very principles of the empire. They did not seek affection, and yet they commanded it. They did not bark to impress, and yet their silence spoke volumes. For thousands of years, the Chow Chow's nature remained untouched. Proud, reserved, loyal only to those who had earned its respect. They reflected the essence of the East itself, calm, controlled, and deeply spiritual beneath the surface. In the early dynasties, they marched alongside soldiers on great campaigns, carrying supplies, guarding borders, and standing beside men who would carve their names into history. When the emperors built their palaces, Chows stood at the gates, their lion-like presence believed to ward off evil spirits. But perhaps their greatest strength was not in muscle or bite, but in stillness. The Chow Chow did not need to prove its power. It existed in quiet confidence, like the mountains that birthed it or the emperors who ruled beneath its watchful eyes. They became a creature of duality. Cold as the northern wind, warm as a fire on a winter night. A guardian and a philosopher, a warrior and a monk. And while centuries would come and go, kingdoms rise and fall, the Chow remained the same, unchanged, untamed, unhurried. Because it was never bred to entertain. It was bred to endure. In the world's oldest civilization, it stood as one of the world's oldest breeds, a living relic of a time when man and nature were equals, when survival required strength not of body alone, but of soul. Even now, when you look into a Chow Chow's eyes, you can still see it, that ancient calm, that steady wisdom of the mountains. It is the gaze of something that has seen empires rise and crumble, and yet remains unmoved. They were not made for obedience, they were made for balance. To guard what was sacred, to protect what was loved, and to remind the world that true power does not shout, it simply is. The Chow Chow did not simply belong to ancient China, it defined it. As the Middle Kingdom rose to glory, so too did its lion-hearted companion. The Chow was no longer just a guardian of temples and villages. It had become something greater, a living emblem of imperial power. During the Han Dynasty, when silk flowed westward and kingdoms bowed to China's influence, the Chow walked within the very walls of the Forbidden City's ancestors. It guarded the halls of nobility and patrolled the marble courtyards of scholars. Where other breeds barked, the Chow simply watched, a silent enforcer of peace and authority. Emperors adored their calm strength. In a world ruled by hierarchy and precision, the Chow Chow mirrored perfection, disciplined, dignified, and absolutely loyal to those deemed worthy. They were said to recognize status, to sense the difference between servant and sovereign, bowing not in fear but in respect. No other animal symbolized control quite like the Chow. Its stillness was command, its restraint, elegance, and in its deep-set eyes, emperors saw the reflection of their own rule. Absolute yet serene, powerful yet unshaken. In the Tang dynasty, art and poetry flourished. And so did the Chow's legend. They appeared in silk scrolls, in jade carvings, in tales whispered across tea gardens and royal banquets. They were the lion dogs of the East, the embodiment of imperial grace. To own one was to hold prestige. To gift one was to grant honor. Foreign dignitaries and nobles who visited China often received Chow Chows. As tokens of alliance, living treasures of an empire that needed no words to prove its greatness. The emperors kept them close, not only for protection, but for balance. Because in the Chow's composure, there was wisdom, a quiet reminder that even kings must master themselves before they can rule others. And when the court retired for meditation or calligraphy, a Chow would sit at its master's feet, as still as stone, its presence a comfort to the soul and a symbol of divine harmony. But for all their beauty, the Chow was not a creature of luxury. Its loyalty was not bought with silk or gold. It was earned through trust, patience, and respect. It gave nothing to arrogance and everything to sincerity. To command a Chow was impossible. To lead one was an honor. That is why many emperors believed their Chows carried the spirits of ancient warriors, souls reborn as guardians to watch over the living. In the Buddhist temples of the north, monks whispered that these dogs were protectors between worlds, creatures that guarded the path from life to death. Their blue-black tongues, like ink dipped in midnight, were said to mark the touch of heaven itself. Some claimed that when the world was young, the Chow had licked the edges of the sky while it was being painted. And the divine color never left their mouths. As centuries passed, the Chow Chow became as revered as the dragon and the phoenix. A symbol of majesty, a creature that carried the empire's calm within its fur. But in their royal stillness, there was also solitude. They were adored, yet distant, praised, yet misunderstood. Because the Chow Chow did not crave affection the way other dogs did. They accepted love on their own terms. As equals, that independence, that quiet pride, was what made them the perfect reflection of Chinese philosophy itself, rooted in patience, moved by purpose, defined by restraint. In the emperor's palace, they were often found lying in shadowed corridors, their presence so still that courtiers mistook them for carved lions. But the moment a stranger crossed the threshold, they would rise, dash, soundless, poised, a reminder that beauty without vigilance is hollow. They lived by a simple truth. serve with loyalty, protect with dignity, and never lose composure, not even in the face of chaos. And for nearly 2,000 years, they did exactly that. Through the rise and fall of dynasties, through floods, wars, and revolutions, the Chow Chow endured. Unchanged, unwavering, a lion that refused to kneel. But even lions can face extinction when the world around them burns. And as China entered its darkest centuries, as empires fell and modernity swept across its ancient lands, the Chow would soon face a silence that no emperor's favor could protect it from. Every empire that rises must one day fall. Even the mightiest walls crack beneath the weight of time. And when China's golden dynasties crumbled, the Chow Chow, once the jewel of emperors, was left to survive in silence. The same calm that once made it revered now became its curse. Because when the world turned chaotic, the Chow did not cry. It endured. As the Qing dynasty fell and the last emperor was dethroned, palaces emptied, temples burned, and in the shadow of history's collapse, thousands of royal treasures were destroyed or forgotten. Among them, the lion dogs of China. No longer symbols of power, they became relics of a vanished world. The empire that once bowed before them now had no place for them at all. In the great famines and wars that followed, many Chows disappeared. Some starved beside the ruins they once guarded. Others were taken as food in desperate times. The breed that had stood unshaken for millennia was brought to the brink of extinction, not by enemies but by hunger. Yet somehow they survived. In remote mountain villages and forgotten monasteries, a few lines remained, preserved by monks, farmers, and families, who saw in the Chow not luxury, but loyalty. They were not bred for show or fame. They were kept for what they always had been: guardians of homes, protectors of spirits, keepers of quiet strength. While dynasties changed and flags rose and fell, the Chow remained unchanged, unhurried, waiting for the world to remember. The people who kept them did not write their names in history books. They did not wear crowns or command armies, but they did something greater. They saved a legacy. In cold courtyards, Chows huddled by hearths, their thick coats protecting both flesh and faith. They kept watch over rice fields and altars alike, their loyalty as steadfast as ever. And when soldiers marched through villages, the Chows did what they had always done. They stood their ground, because the spirit of the lion cannot be conquered. Through revolution, war, and exile, these dogs held on to their purpose: to guard, to endure, to remain. It was this quiet resilience that would one day capture the hearts of the West. In the late 18th and 19th centuries, foreign traders began to visit the great ports of China: Shanghai, Canton, and Tianjin. Among silks and spices, they found something unexpected, a creature like no other. Compact yet powerful. A face like a lion's, a gait like a monarch's, its tongue dark as ink, its eyes old as time. They called it the wild dog of China. And for good reason. No one in the West had ever seen anything like it. Some feared it. Some adored it. All were fascinated. Specimens were brought to England aboard merchant ships, first as curiosities, then as companions. Queen Victoria herself received one, and like the emperors before her, she too was captivated. The Chow Chow became a living mystery, a creature that carried the East within its silence. In an age obsessed with control, it remained untamed in spirit. Western breeders struggled to understand it. They expected obedience, the Chow offered judgment. They sought affection, the Chow gave respect. It did not wag its tail for everyone. It did not kneel for kindness. It waited to see who was worthy and those who earned its trust. Discovered something astonishing. Beneath the proud exterior was the same ancient devotion that had guarded emperors and temples, a loyalty that transcended culture, distance, and time. By the early 1900s, the Chow had become a fascination in England. Paraded in dog shows, painted in portraits, written about in admiration and awe. But behind its noble image was a survivor's heart, a breed that had seen centuries of empire, loss, and rebirth. Even as it found fame in the West, its true nature never changed. It remained what it had always been. A being of balance, dignified but affectionate, solitary yet loyal, silent yet powerful. The world that once forgot the Chow Chow was now learning what China had always known. That greatness does not need noise, and survival does not need permission. The Chow Chow had outlasted famine, war, and empire itself. And now, reborn beyond the Great Wall, it was ready to teach the modern world what true resilience looks like: calm, proud, and eternal. When the ships of empire crossed the oceans, they carried silk, porcelain, and secrets. Among them was one of China's oldest treasures, a dog that seemed carved from myth itself. To the sailors and traders who first saw it in the ports of Canton and Shanghai, the Chow Chow looked like no other creature on earth. Its mane flared like a lion's, its eyes glowed with calm intelligence, and its expression was one word made flesh: dignity. They called it the Canton dog, the wild dog of China, and finally, the Chow Chow, a phrase derived from the pidgin for miscellaneous cargo. A name born of misunderstanding, for nothing about this breed was ever miscellaneous. When the first Chows stepped onto British soil in the late 1700s, they caused quiet astonishment. People had seen dogs that fetched, herded, guarded, but never one that simply watched. Its silence unsettled them. Its confidence fascinated them. Victorian England, a society obsessed with control and manners, saw in the Chow Chow a mirror, the embodiment of restraint and poise. It did not beg for attention. It accepted it like royalty. It was not a subject, it was a presence. Artists painted them. Writers described them as the most Eastern of creatures, a monk wrapped in fur. Queen Victoria herself kept one, and soon the Chow became a symbol of taste and refinement. But fame came with misunderstanding. Some saw only its aloofness, not its loyalty. They mistook calm for coldness, silence for arrogance. Yet those who took the time to listen beyond words discovered the truth. The Chow Chow was not distant, it was discerning. It loved but selectively. It obeyed but thoughtfully. It trusted only those who proved they were worthy, just as it had done for emperors and monks before. As dog shows flourished across Europe, the Chow's regal posture drew crowds. Its thick double coat shimmered under gas-lit halls. Its leonine head tilted ever so slightly towards the crowd, as if acknowledging applause, without needing it. By the early 1900s, the lion dog of China had conquered the West. In London parlors, Paris studios, and New York brownstones, it became the ultimate symbol of mystery and elegance. But the Chow never became Western. It allowed the world to come to it, and in doing so, it remained unmistakably itself. Painters like Cassatt and Whistler captured its stillness. Hollywood stars like Clark Gable and Martha Stewart later owned them, drawn not to their fame, but to their quiet independence. Because in an age that demanded constant motion, the Chow stood perfectly still, a reminder that power can exist in silence. In the chaos of 2 world wars, Chows accompanied families into exile, stood beside soldiers in photographs, and waited patiently for peace. They did not bark at the bombs. They simply endured, as they always had. And when the world rebuilt itself, the Chow rebuilt too, not as a relic, but as a living bridge between East and West. Everywhere they went, they carried their origins with them. The temples, the emperors, the mountains, the monks. Even when walking down London streets, their posture spoke of dynasties. Their silence echoed the halls of palaces long gone. People began to understand, perhaps for the first time, what the Chinese had always known: that serenity itself can be strength, that discipline can be devotion, that love need not shout to be eternal. The Chow Chow became more than a breed. It became a philosophy, a living lesson in balance and pride. Children grew up beside them and learned patience. Artists drew them and found peace, and those lucky enough to earn their loyalty discovered the kind of companionship that doesn't demand, it simply exists. Even now, in the modern world, the Chow walks with the same measured step it has kept for thousands of years. It doesn't rush, it doesn't chase. It moves with the rhythm of time itself, unhurried, unbothered, unwavering. Across oceans and centuries, through empires and upheavals, it has remained constant. A lion in body, a sage in spirit, a guardian of calm in a restless world. And yet, the Chow's greatest chapter was still to come, a legacy not of power or royalty, but of peace. Because while the West saw its beauty, those who lived with it came to see something deeper. A heart that loves quietly, a soul that forgives without words, and a presence that turns a house into a temple. The Chow Chow had crossed the sea, but in truth, it had carried its homeland with it. The wisdom of silence, the dignity of discipline, and the courage to simply be still. In a world that never stops moving. Every breed tells a story, but few whisper their story with such quiet strength. The Chow Chow does not live in history. It is history, a creature sculpted by time, shaped by patience, and perfected by purpose. Its journey began in the cold mountains of China, walked through the palaces of emperors, crossed oceans, and finally came to rest in the modern world, where it still stands unchanged, uncompromised, and utterly itself. To meet a Chow Chow today is to meet the soul of an ancient civilization, in the body of a single being. Its stance is noble but never arrogant, its gaze deep, still, knowing. It does not seek your approval because it already knows who it is. Where other dogs rush to please, the Chow waits, watching, measuring, deciding whether you are worthy of its loyalty. And when you are, when you have earned that silent trust, what you gain is not obedience, but respect. That is what makes the Chow different. It does not serve, it shares. It does not flatter, it honors. Its love is quiet, steadfast, and pure. People often mistake that stillness for pride, but the truth runs deeper. The Chow Chow's calm is not coldness, it's discipline. It's the self-mastery of a creature that has known both war and peace, power and loss, and has learned that neither should disturb the soul. There is an old saying in China, Still water runs deep. The Chow Chow is that proverb given life. Beneath its silence flows a current of feeling so vast it can only be understood through experience. The kind of loyalty that watches, protects, and forgives, without ever needing to be asked. Families who live with a Chow understand this. They describe it not as owning a pet, but as sharing space with a guardian spirit. It doesn't follow you from room to room. It simply positions itself, always near, always watching, always calm. At night, it rests by your door, not because it fears intruders, but because it knows its place between you and the world. In that silence lies something profound, a reminder of what true love looks like, not loud, not demanding, but constant. Children grow up beside it, learning gentleness from its patience. The elderly find comfort in its presence. A silent companion who never asks and never leaves, and in moments of grief or joy, the Chow remains the same. Steady, grounded, the unspoken balance in the chaos of life. Because that is its purpose, to balance, to protect, to endure. Every line of its body, every movement, every glance is a meditation, a lesson in restraint, composure, and grace. It is the living embodiment of the Taoist ideal, be still, and the world will find harmony through you. Even in a world of noise and haste, the Chow Chow refuses to hurry. It teaches by example that peace is not the absence of chaos, but the mastery of it. That is why, centuries after its birth, it remains unchanged. It doesn't bend to trends. It doesn't seek attention. It stands apart, a lion in a world of echoes. And perhaps that's why people around the world are drawn to it still, because in the Chow's calm, we see something we've lost. The quiet strength of purpose, the serenity that comes from knowing who you are. When you stand beside one, you feel it. That ancient energy, that unbroken lineage of guardians, monks, hunters, and kings. You feel the weight of history, not as burdens, but as peace. And when you look into its eyes, you see your reflection smaller, softer, humbled, and you realize that this creature, this silent sentinel, has seen everything humanity has seen, and forgiven it. The Chow Chow is not a relic of the past. It is a reminder of what endures when everything else falls away: dignity, loyalty, and love. It asks for nothing. It gives everything. And it does so with the grace of something eternal. The world will continue to change. Faster, louder, more chaotic. But the Chow will not. It will keep walking, steady as ever, carrying its quiet empire within its heart. Because some legends don't fade. They simply slow their pace and keep moving beside us, reminding us to breathe. The Chow Chow -- born of fire and ice, forged in silence, crowned in loyalty, the lion of the East, the guardian of peace, the soul of serenity, that will never, ever die.